I have the most popular camera in the entire world, the iPhone. And because I'm a professional photographer, I have the iPhone 13 Pro Max, 1,100 bucks.
Oh yeah, well for $900, I have something better. It's the new Google Pixel 6 Pro. Not only is it prettier, but it has features that your phone does not have, like the new action panning feature. I'm gonna show this off to you and you're gonna be jealous, Mr. Popular Phone.
In this video, we're testing stills only, but we're recording a lot of this video with the phones. So look in the corner to see what we're filming with. Subscribe to see the future review where we cover the video capabilities.
Tony, try the action panning mode and see how it works.
Here's a standard photo taken with the iPhone, and you can see Chelsea looks like she's parked. It's missing that key part of storytelling, which is movement. The iPhone does allow you to change its live photos to a long exposure mode, but you can see it's very shaky looking. This is created by averaging a bunch of separate images, but as a result, the movement isn't smooth. The iPhone also made no effort to stabilize non-moving subjects. The Pixel's long exposure isn't perfect, but it does tell the story. You can tell she's driving and not parked. There's some fringing, and the transitions from still to moving parts of the background, they're not perfect. But this is better than I could get with any smartphone or even a real camera, because a real camera isn't smart enough to separate the foreground and the background subjects. They would both be shaky with this long of an exposure. I love that Google is integrating advanced storytelling into their cameras.
All right, that was the long exposure mode. Now let's try the action pan mode from outside the car. I know the perfect location. Cool.
Now we're gonna test out some panning shots.
What's up?
Switch to action pan, follow a moving subject, and snap. Most cameras give you a picture that looks like the car is parked, but the Pixel blurs the background, showing the motion, telling the most important part of the story. Here's what the iPhone produced. It sucks.
We're in Devil's Hop Yard State Park where there's a big waterfall, so you're gonna be hearing some voiceovers because it's too loud. But while we're here, let's talk about the design. I've got this iPhone. It's got the hard edges, kind of like the iPhone X did.
Whereas my Pixel has some nice soft edges to it, and it has a really beautiful screen, which is hard to show on camera. It kind of makes it look like you have a printed photo under glass. It has a really beautiful look.
I'm shocked, but I actually like that design better. And without the case, I like the black stripe that you have across the back better too. It's just more modern and beautiful, and it feels better in the hand. Because this is actually like, it's uncomfortable to hold without a case, whereas that feels so soft and natural. And even though the screens are almost like exactly the same size, yours feels smaller. It fits in the pocket better.
Yeah, it feels a little more comfortable, but I will say it's so streamlined, it's kind of slippery, so I'm definitely gonna put my case on right away.
I feel like as design goes, the Pixel definitely wins this. But both these cameras can do long exposures, so we're gonna grab a tripod and go try them out with the waterfall.
As professional photographers, we're used to carrying a tripod and a big camera and an ND filter for this type of shot.
Nice.
The Pixel doesn't need a filter or a tripod. It fits in your pocket, and if it falls in the water, it's waterproof. Again, using the iPhone's long exposure mode, this is the best we could get handheld. The iPhone will blend the photos together, but it doesn't stabilize them. The Pixel intelligently blends them together, so the still parts are sharp and the moving parts are moving. Again, it's not perfect. We can see this still part here got a little bit blurred out as it got grouped into the moving water. I put both cameras on a tripod, and you can see that dramatically improved the iPhone's picture, but the Pixel didn't really change how it processed. The iPhone's exposure seems longer and the water seems smoother, but if you zoom in, you'll see a flaw in the iPhone processing. See this repeated pattern? That happens because there's a little gap between each of the individual pictures that the iPhone takes, and the iPhone isn't smart enough to create an artificial motion blur out of it. The Pixel's exposure isn't as long, but it more intelligently blends it into one long exposure. Turning off the long exposure, let's compare the sharpness of the main lenses. To me, the Pixel looks a little sharper. I see more detail in these leaves and this tree. Checking the foreground, look at this white birch. There's so much more detail in the Pixel picture than there is in the iPhone photo. The Pixel is definitely the better landscape camera. We decided to test the selfie cameras at the falls, and you can see they have very different image processing. The iPhone really raises the shadows and eliminates all contrast in the faces. You can see the Pixel leaves in the natural shadows under the eye, for better or worse. I think here the iPhone processing looks a little bit better, but the Pixel's processing is a little more natural. You can pick your favorite. I tested the macro capabilities by focusing as close as I could to this rose. This is the Google Pixel, and this is the iPhone. The iPhone's new macro lens is just astounding. That's a win for Apple. Walking back after dusk, we spotted a hawk in a tree and decided to test out each camera's telephoto lenses. The Pixel has drastically more detail with its 105mm equivalent lens. The iPhone's 77mm equivalent lens just doesn't show enough. For faraway subjects, the Pixel wins. I tried taking pictures of birds at my feeder, but I couldn't get the telephoto lens on the Pixel to properly focus.
The cameras on our phones are looking more and more like professional photos. But why do professional cameras have huge lenses like this? It's so they can have a larger aperture. That's the part that opens up like your eye and lets in more light. And why do you want to let in more light? Well, it makes cleaner photos, but it also makes the background more blurred, so you get more subject separation. Let me show you what I mean.
With a traditional camera, the photographer chooses the aperture at the time of shooting. Measured in f-stops, higher f-stop numbers offer less background blur, lower f-stop numbers offer more background blur, and bigger bokeh balls. For more information, check our award-winning photography book, Stunning Digital Photography.
Now let's see what the same photo looks like with the Google Pixel and the iPhone using software-based background blur instead of a big old lens like that.
In my opinion, the iPhone photo on the left is overprocessed. Apple always removes all the shadows from your face and puts this weird yellow tint to it. The Pixel actually looks better from a distance, but let's zoom in. The iPhone has a nice even transition to the artificial background blur that looks completely natural. The Pixel's transition is harsh and artificial. The worst part about the Pixel's 2x mode is that it's actually a crop from the wider angle lens. Thus, it's really low resolution. And then the Pixel adds a whole bunch of sharpening to try to make it better, but it just ends up making your skin look terrible. I promise I don't really look like that Pixel photo. Shooting into the sun, the Pixel did much better. It focused more accurately and had less flaring.
When in full sun, the iPhone screen is noticeably brighter.
If we compare the iPhone to our Canon R5, you can see the Canon R5's colors are much more natural, and the iPhone seems to wash out all the detail from your face. We can also see what real optical bokeh transitions look like. To further test bokeh fall off for flyaways, we recruited our furriest model. You can see the Pixel better exposed for Pixel's eye, whereas the iPhone let it go very dark. But zooming into these bokeh transitions, you can see the iPhone is nice and smooth, rendering it just like a real camera would, whereas the Pixel draws harsh lines between the foreground and background and doesn't smooth out those transitions. So they both look fine zoomed back, but zoomed in, the iPhone definitely looks better. Now we'll dim the lights, light some candles, and test low-light, wide-angle portraits. The Pixel's artificial bokeh really creates background separation, focusing your attention onto Chelsea instead of the distractions. The depth mapping is really good. The front of this map is sharp, while the back is nicely blurred, and the transition between the two seems very smooth. Great work, Google. The Pixel's night sight algorithm stacked multiple images in low light to smooth out Chelsea's face. As a result, her skin looks way better than the iPhone in these conditions. The iPhone doesn't even have a wide-angle portrait mode. You can see in this low-light scenario, the Pixel did a better job of blurring the background and produced clearer images thanks to also combining the portrait mode with night sight.
The Pixel won the wide-angle portraits, but the iPhone won the telephoto portraits. This is because of a design decision that Apple and Google made. Apple put in a 77mm telephoto lens with depth mapping, and that's what they use for the telephoto portraits. The Pixel put in a 105mm telephoto lens that's better for faraway subjects, but it doesn't use it for portraits. Thus, it had used the wide-angle lens for the telephoto portraits, which resulted in cropping, which resulted in lower quality. But in wide-angle situations, maybe more common in the real world, the iPhone completely lacks that depth mapping bokeh capability. The Pixel made the wide-angle lens the depth mapping portrait lens. Thus, you have the option of wide-angle portraits, which you completely lack on the iPhone. So which works better for you depends on whether you're more into traditional portraits or wide-angle natural environment portraits. Let's look at some more shots that we took in a coffee shop.
The Pixel crops in a bit on its wide camera, but also blurs the background. The bokeh created subject separation that blurred out this unnecessary employees only sign, which just serves as a distraction on the iPhone. The skin tones are more natural on the Pixel too, whereas the iPhone skin tones are orange and oversaturated. In this backlit photo, you can see the iPhone made my face completely orange. The iPhone also recovered detail in the background, which was probably better left hidden. While the Pixel might be a little undersaturated, I like the fact that it let the background become overexposed, since it is a distraction anyway. Zooming in, we can see the Pixel sensor is far more detailed. Oh, I really gotta pluck some of those black hairs.
Realistically, both those smartphones produce excellent portraits in different situations. If you want to learn more about making portraits, check out our award-winning video book with more than 20 hours of video, Stunning Digital Photography. More than 2 million people have learned photography this way in the last decade. Whether using a real camera, a drone, a smartphone, the concepts of lighting, posing, storytelling are all the same. Check it out and help support this channel. Now I'm going to test both these phones for astrophotography, pictures of the stars. This is something that used to be reserved for huge cameras with big, fast lenses on a tripod, but I'm going to do them both handheld.
The super wide lenses on both the smartphones produced absolutely terrible results. Switching to the main lens, you can see they both did an amazing job of handheld astrophotography. These constellations are so much clearer on the Pixel, and if you really zoom into the iPhone, you can see movement. This is camera shake that the iPhone didn't successfully eliminate. The Google Pixel just does much better processing of these astro shots.
You can also put both these on a tripod, just as any real photographer would for astrophotography. And the iPhone has a cool advantage here, and that's MagSafe. MagSafe is this magnetic system where you can stick chargers or wallets or other things onto the back, but you can also buy this tripod mount. Let me attach it. Bam. No quick release plate. Turn it horizontal, vertical, whatever. The Pixel will only do this with the case off. It's not quite magnetic enough to go through the case. Let's take a look at the results.
It's alright, I caught the Pixel just in time, but maybe don't use MagSafe for the Pixel. The iPhone kept the shutter open for 30 seconds, while the Pixel kept it open for a full 4 minutes. Let's zoom in. The iPhone over-sharpened the stars. That's why you see they each have little shadows. All the stars are also little lines on the iPhone because the stars actually move through the sky. The Pixel is smart enough to cancel out those movements. It actually acts as a star tracker, and by staying open 8 times longer, the Pixel pulled even more stars out of the sky. The Pixel did something even a star tracker couldn't do, and that's keep still foreground subjects sharp. You can see it masked off this tree to keep the branches sharp, way better than the iPhone did, but you can see an artificial line where the Pixel's movement masking stopped capturing all the stars behind these tree branches. Most people wouldn't notice it.
I tried taking a selfie with the stars in the background, but I couldn't see the screen, so it's not a good selfie. But you could see the iPhone lit up the screen and illuminated my face, but also somehow managed to balance the exposure and get stars in the background. It completely blew away the Pixel. So if you want to take starlit selfies, I guess you get the iPhone.
The Pixel 6 Pro has the superior camera and is the way better option.
It does have some weaknesses. The iPhone was better at the telephoto portraits, and the fake bokeh in that telephoto mode was way better, way smoother.
It was a little better.
But you have things like the action panning and the long exposures that the iPhone can't do at all.
You also don't have the 105mm zoom that the Pixel has. Also, I like the processing better for landscapes and things like that. There's more saturation, there's more contrast, they look a little bit richer. Clear winner for me.
The Pixel 6 Pro, the best smartphone camera for stills photography we've ever tested.
Wait, one more thing. It's also better in low light, which is not some trivial place to win. How many of you have taken pictures in clubs or at restaurants and it's all like smudgy and ugly? This looks way better in low light.
Okay. We're gonna test the video capabilities next. Subscribe to see that. And in the comments down below, tell us which 2 smartphones you'd like us to compare in our next video.
It looks better too. It has a better design and I like the screen better.
Yeah.
I'm not taking this win lightly. I'm gonna keep driving it home. You can turn off the cameras, but I'm gonna keep going.
This goes on forever?
Yes, this is our life now.